7 years ago, more or less, I started my postdoc with an honest question. I wanted to understand how marketing can become regenerative for the ecosystem. And this question is really in me for over a decade already. So maybe 15 years ago, I was studying conscious consumerism at the doctoral level, and I studied a lot. I really put myself into and made myself available to understand the real function of marketing. And in my heart, I see it as an actual sense of service. So if we are doing marketing in a service way, we are looking at the ecosystem, at the guild, not at the value chain, at the guild, and we are building and developing products and services that are actually serving the ecosystem. They are bringing relevance, they are changing lives. They are not just selling something that people don't need. They're not just pushing value propositions that make people slaves of the use of that product or service. They are actually making a difference. But that is what happens in my heart. It's what I do see in the market. It's not that reality. So I see a lot of exploitation. I see a lot of non-ethical decisions that marketing even frames them as frameworks. And I've been ashamed. I've been ashamed of what marketing has been doing. So in one sense, it brought us a lot of comfort and security because it has structured ways to exchange value and monetary value, especially. But in a relationship way, it has not done a lot. So I got to this main conclusion that marketing as itself can never become regenerative. Because as the word indicates, it speaks about marketing. It speaks about markets, and markets are only focused on the transactional ways of doing things. And if we're just looking at commercial transactions, so we are losing sight of the bigger picture of the whole, and that is not how nature works. So because I had the privilege to start my adult life with the study of permaculture and deep ecology, and I've always been an ecologist at heart. I had the privilege to have a mom that decided to bring me to a very rural area of Portugal. So I really grew up in nature, and I fell in love with it. And yes, unfortunately, not every kid has the privilege to grow up in nature right now. I did have that, and that made me a different type of human, because we need to have a critical look on how we are doing things, and we need to question a lot nowadays. And as I grew up and I made my career in marketing, when I got to the PhD and I was really trying to understand how conscious consumerism could contribute to this transformation and of the marketing and the function marketing, only later on the postdoc did I realize that we needed new words. So as I was studying permaculture, one of the words and constructs that we would use a lot was the guilds, and an ecological guild, which can be described as the smallest collaboration of elements that we can have. For instance, a tree cannot live without the fungus. For their enzymes and the way that they deconstruct and decompose the materials and the minerals that they can absorb. It cannot live without birds spreading the seeds and making cross DNA happen. They cannot live without mammals. And so there's a small ecosystem within certain type of synergies that allow one element to be alive. So it's the collective work of several elements of that guild that actually make each one of them alive. And when I mean alive, is not just surviving, but thriving. So I started looking at guilds as value chains, or value chains as guilds, because we were missing out on the bigger picture of looking at a living system and not just a market. So one day I just got this insight of calling the function of marketing gilding. Because if we are only looking at the transactional level, again, we are losing sight of the bigger picture. So framing the function, exactly the same function of marketing towards gilding allowed me to come from a totally different angle of thought. And this is where taxonomy and articulation comes in. If I speak about marketing, I put myself in a place that I will be immersed in that concept, in that construct, and my thoughts are just going to be on that sphere. If I use different taxonomy, different words, then I will be allowing myself to have different synapses, different angles to come in and to inspire me in my own thoughts and my own reasoning. So moving from marketing to gilding really allowed me to have a lot more elasticity and freedom even to think differently. So I've been developing a lot this gilding concept because I really needed to have anchors to allow me to think differently and systemically, and really eventually get to a point that I can actually understand how can the function of marketing become regenerative to the ecosystem. So yes, this new word that I had the insight and I've been having the privilege to channel, it's really inspiring me to look at the world in a different angle. And we all have our own tools. So I had the privilege to have this insight, but we all have other means to engage with language and taxonomy and all of that. But one of the things that I really love about using different taxonomy, different words, or different ways of expression is the layer of the intimacy that they might bring. So for me, gilding, just having that as an example, brought me to this sense of intimacy with the guild. If I'm really engaged in taking care of the guild and being part of it as a mammal, as an element of that guild, and not just putting myself in a separate world and an anthropocentric worldview, as we are taught in management schools and so many schools of thought that points us towards sustainability or even circularity. But if we put ourselves to think from a place of a worldview, a biocentric worldview, then we shift our own inner reality and allow ourselves to have broader and more insightful ideas to come. And I speak about intimacy because when you are thinking as nature, when you are realizing that or remembering how to be nature again, then even the emotional angle and the relationships that happen change, because this intimacy of connection suddenly is there, and suddenly we can connect to that. And this has been one of the most inspiring elements of just being engaged with this different layer of taxonomy. So every time that I now am in a biocentric worldview and I express myself through that, and I engage with living systems theories, or even if I go to my mental approach, and there's a lot less disconnection from my heart center. So I can engage better on connecting this these angles and the intentionality where I come from, which is nurturing, and it's very emotional, and it can become very intimate when you are so much devoted to that land or to that people, to that guild, that you have this commitment towards that guild. So everything that you do and all the actions that you end up deciding to have, they come from this place. So even if you're a very articulated person and you're brilliant in your mind and you have, the power and the will to develop all these amazing concepts, without this intimacy and this honesty of delivering relevance to what you're doing and the elements of the guild that you're serving, then if we don't come from this angle, that we are losing a lot. And yes, of course, all of this brings a lot of more complexity, because when you're bringing in layers of intimacy and emotional layers to the mental constructs that we have, obviously it becomes complex. But if we see how our nature evolves, it evolves towards new levels of complexity. It has been like that for ever. So I believe that we do need to change abruptly to worldviews that will enable us to converge our thoughts and our reasoning to what we actually know that is possible, and eventually learning to live and think and act from a more abstract way will, and allowing that to happen in us. So maybe if we feel a lot more, if we connect a lot more, I will have access to layers of information and layers of care that then at its own time will allow us to articulate our thoughts and our solutions in a totally different way. And sometimes the articulation from this level of information to this level of information, for me, sometimes takes years, because if I am deeply connected to my guild, I'm bound to this honest exchange. And sometimes I feel the guilt so much that I'm lost, because I don't know sometimes even how to engage. But it does not mean that connection is not inspiring me, and eventually if bringing me in the future a layer of understanding that will allow me to bring a solution, or even a product or service that will fulfill the need or the potential of that guild. And I might be one element to contribute to that, because I'm listening to that, I'm honestly connected to that, and I have in my heart an honest sense of contribution, because the extractive mentality is not taking us anywhere or getting us anywhere, is just really being destructive, not only outside but also inwards. So yes, so I believe that it takes a lot of courage to change taxonomy and engage in intimacy with this new world we want to create. Um, because sometimes it hurts, because maybe some of us that are trying to go this route feel that it's more complex, it's confusing sometimes, different layers of consciousness and worldviews collide among elements of the guild. So it's really a lot more complex. It takes a lot of courage to go this route. But I believe that if we as individuals and elements of the guild, if we at least do an honest try and evolve towards a more emotional and connected and more intimate space, and we use different taxonomy and different words and different ways of expression, then we will get somewhere differently. And yes, these are my thoughts, and that's why I see lots of my colleagues and people that are actually changing a lot in their local guilds using different words, different, even sometimes just different levels of presence in their own body, disconnecting from social media, disconnecting from all this digital world that is probably entertaining us so much, that is putting us in a way that we are losing sight with the most important thing, which is just being present and experiencing life as it is, and the privilege to be here and just experiencing all of this, and through that presence engaging from a lot more deeper way with our guilds, and eventually allowing ourselves to emerge through us whatever the guild and the potential needs to or wants to create. So it puts ourselves in kind of a midwife position if we are free enough inside to allow things to emerge through us. So there's this layer of emptiness that for me is totally connected with all of this, all of those processes, which is, if I allow myself to empty myself of what I think I am, what I want to bring, then I will have a lot more space to actually listen and to have the seed of the potential of the guild that I am seeing somehow and might not be seeing yet in my mind, but I'm seeing in my heart. And eventually, if that's my role, if this is my function, maybe I will be able to articulate what I'm seeing in my heart with certain product, service, certain poetry, certain experience that I put together. I don't know what's coming out of each one. Normally, for me, it comes out strategies and financial instruments, but everyone has a function in the ecosystem. So I do believe that if we empty ourselves to the point that we actually feel the guild, then we allow ourselves to contribute with a lot more, because we are connected, emotionally connected in a very intimate way with the potential that is there to be created. And because we're not living alone. So if we allow ourselves to be a lot closer, emotionally closer to the guild, and not just to abstract constructs in markets and all of this anthropocentric worldview, maybe we are allowing ourselves to build, develop, to create something totally different, even that we don't even know it's possible. I mean, we don't know it's possible in our minds, but we know it's possible in our hearts. So yes, taxonomy and intimacy for me has a huge matter on this path of creating the world, the beautiful world that we know it's possible, as Charles Eisenstein so beautifully puts it. And I really believe in this. So are we allowing ourselves to go these routes of new words, new self-expression, and intimacy? I hope so.